Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Community Safety Committee meeting of Wednesday, September the 21st. I don't see Councillor Steve's on there, but we do have quorum, so hopefully he'll join us. The first item is the minutes of the meeting held on July the 12th are here. Were there any, for approval, were there any errors or omissions?
Move adoption.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you very much. The next committee meeting date is scheduled for October the 12th at 4 p.m. in council chambers. Were there any items to add to the agenda? All right. Item number 1, Animal Protection Services Monthly Activity Report. Ms. Lloyd is not here today. If there are any questions, Ms. Rcmp will answer them. So, were there any questions from committee for the June report?
Move receipt.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Seconded, thank you. I don't see any questions, so all those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 2, Animal Protection Services Monthly Activity Report, July 2022. Any questions from committee?
Move receipt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, thank you. I don't see any questions, so all those in favor? Opposed? It is carried, thank you. Item number 3, Property Use and Parking Enforcement Monthly Activity Report, June 2022. And Mr. Corrado, I believe, is here today.
Good report.
Any questions from committee on this report?
Move receipt.
Moved, and is there a seconder?
Second.
Second, thank you. I don't see any questions, so all those in favor? Opposed? It is carried, thank you. And item number 4, Property Use and Parking Enforcement Monthly Activity Report, July 2022. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Corrado? All right, thank you. Any questions from committee? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, through the chair, to staff on this one. On our page CS 32, that's the ticketing section, and there's a table that mentions there's 20 soil deposit and removal offenses. And then the paragraph below, it says that the increase is due to a single operator using a property contrary to the bylaw. It doesn't specify which property that is. Have committee been told? I know I'm not on committee. Could staff either comment on it, either saying the address, or just comment on the type of operation this is?
Mr. Corrado.
The chair, through to the chair to Councillor Wolf. There are 2 principal violations that are occurring. One is a soil bylaw violation. The second is a business license violation, operating without appropriate license. The area is on number 6 road, roughly the 5,000 block.
Thank you. Then if I may just follow up, I also note in this section, or some section around here, it says that there's 70 site inspections that happen in July. That seems like a lot for what is considered the soil officer. Is that truly just one person, or are there other people working with the officer?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, this is a standard number of site inspections. That is one officer, and in a typical day they can do multiple site inspections.
Okay, just wanted to hear that from you. Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions from committee?
Move receipt.
See any, so it has been
Second.
moved and seconded, thank you. I don't see any other questions, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried, thank you. Item number 5, Business License Activity Report, second quarter 2022. And it's you again, Mr. Corrado. Anything you'd like to add?
Through the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from committee?
No. Move receipt.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. I just want to, I don't know if it was in July, the illegal ride-hailing enforcement that happened and the ticketing, I know it got a lot of media attention. So I want to thank, our bylaws department working in with the RCMP to get this done. And I know this is something that's been talked about at this committee quite a lot. So congratulations and keep up the good work. All right, I don't see any questions. I'll call the question on the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 6, Richmond Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report, June 2022. Fire Chief Jim Wishlub is with us today. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you. I have nothing further to add to my report, but I'm happy to answer questions from your committee.
All right, thank you. Any questions from committee? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, through the chair to Fire Chief. Just 2 questions, and they're both related to significant events on page CS 44. The first one was the Burkeville Days event, which I attended, and I was there when the person had collapsed and the fire crew were first responders. And it was quite a while, as mentioned in here. It said it was for a significant period of time. And then at the bottom, it mentions that 2 Richmond Fire crew members accompanied the patient to continue providing patient assistance. So my question there is, what type of patient assistance would have our fire crews provided at the hospital?
Yeah.
And also, how did they get to the hospital? Does that involve taking the actual fire truck there, or did they ride in the ambulance, or is there a smaller personal vehicle that they take?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, thank you for the question. There was 2 units from BC Ambulance that attended that call and performed interventions on that patient on site. When the advanced life support paramedics decided to leave and take the patient to the hospital, they requested that 2 of our members attend with them in the ambulance to help support medical interventions with that patient while en route to the hospital, which is a normal practice for our first responders.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. And then my second question, if I may, through the chair, real briefly, the item above that, the one on Twig Place, Mitchell Island, could you comment at all on the type of material that was on fire? Because the concern I have is around the water contamination, where when it is flushed, many cases on Mitchell Island, it just goes over the side into the river. So any comments on the type of material that was burned there?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that fire was involving a large recycling facility on Mitchell Island, and the water runoff from our firefighting activities can be and was corralled in a number of different ways. A lot of those properties have their own sump pumps on site that they use to collect any water runoff in order to prevent any contamination into the river, into the waterways, or the storm drains as well.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
All right, Councillor Hobbs.
Well, thank you, and through the chair, thank you for the report, Chief. And just one quick question on also page 44. The fire on Azure with the, I think it's a dryer or a washing machine. I'm wondering about the frequency of those, because that can be quite tricky if you don't maintain, different pieces of equipment, including those. So can you comment on the frequency of that? And also, is that something fire services, I would expect, does some public education on, and, tips for the public to avoid that kind of fire, because it seems preventable?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, thank you. Through my experience in the last number of years, that's not a frequent occurrence of fires, although dryers and stoves and cooking implements are typically the cause of fires in the homes. We do analyze our fire statistics annually, and that drives our next phase of fire prevention activities through our outreach team here at RFR. As well, when we report to the Office of the Fire Commissioner, which we are obligated to do through the Provincial Act, they also compile stats provincially and inform us of what the trends are across the province, and we adopt those and use those in our outreach activities as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I'd just like to reflect back on the medical event at Catalina Crescent. I was there the whole time, and while the 2 ambulances came, etc. And I'd just like to make a comment, if I may. I had just spoken to the lady or the victim that succumbed to her thing, and I'd just like to say to the chief, and I'd like this passed on the rank and file. You know, you don't get enough credit for what you did. I watched the whole thing. I was standing there with the the Sea Island Heritage Committee and watched the whole process, and I watched our men and women in action. And this is why we invest in this area. And Jim, I'd like you to take it back to rank and file. You did one hell of a job, and thank God you people were there, because I did see the 2 ambulances come up after, but our people were working long before the ambulances came and did a job, and they need to be recognized. So if you'd pass that on personally from me, but I hope from committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair to Councillor McNulty. I appreciate it. I certainly will pass it on. And I couldn't be proud of our crews. I was also there present when that happened, and it was a tragic event. And our crews did jump into action immediately when summoned to that. So
great job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I don't see, Councillor Hobbs, is your hand up again? Do you have another question?
Nope.
Oh,
it
all
just
right.
Didn't go down.
I don't see any other questions.
Move receipt.
The recommendation has been
With
moved and
thanks.
seconded. No other questions? Oh, Councillor Day, did you have a question? Oh, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 7, Richmond Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report, July 2022. Fire Chief, Mr. Wichlove, anything you want to add about this report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing further to add to this report.
Oh,
All
good
right.
job.
Any questions from committee?
Move receipt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I don't see any questions, so all those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. And the Fire Chief briefing. Is there anything you want to share with us today, Fire Chief?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one detail I'd like to share with you and your committee is that through our experience with some of the recycling fires that we've attended to on Mitchell Island in the past number of months, we have struck a task force led by RFR and includes our partners in bylaws and the environmental program here in the city. And we are reviewing those calls for service. We are reviewing those properties, and we are looking at performing some intervention and some support and education for those operators on Mitchell Island in order to preclude this from happening again in the future.
Well, that's wonderful. And I hope that, over the next couple of months that you can report back to committee on how, the process has worked and any findings that you have and any, thing that you're going to be doing differently. And I think it's really a great idea that you're working with the businesses that are out on Mitchell Island so that they can learn a little bit more too. All right.
Yeah,
Any
thank
questions?
you. We will be bringing that back. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Any questions of the Fire Chief? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to number 9, Rcmp Monthly Activity Report, June 2022. And we have the Acting OIC, Ms. Drotar, here with us today. Good afternoon. Anything you'd like to add to the report? Oh, we can't hear you.
I says, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Nothing to add to the report. Sorry about that.
Okay, any questions from committee? Councillor Day. Can't hear you.
Okay, got it now. Thank you. How are you? Thank you for coming today. I have a question. I attended last week a 2020 meeting, which is all of the groups out in Steveston. And the last 2 weeks, they've had a big increase of graffiti on heritage buildings at the Gulf of Georgia, the Steveston Community Center, and other buildings as well. And they were requesting if they could have increased patrols in the village of Steveston.
Definitely, this is something we can definitely look at it. I have not heard in any of the reports from the front line that we've received some complaints in regards to graffiti in these specific areas. But if you do, please, and just make sure that they do contact us, and we definitely will do more than just do patrols, because there's a few things that our community engagement team can actually do. Some of the graffitis are actually very specific with messagings and stuff, and we can engage our investigative team or community enforcement team, so definitely.
Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Roeder. My question is about on page CS 66. Very unfortunate data says that double the number of sexual offenses were reported from the previous month. And I do know that the next item on the agenda, the numbers did go down in July, but June so high. And I know that the engineers, that 75% suspects have been identified. Does this data speak to the fact that most of these were between people who know each other then, as opposed to strangers? And is there any connection to Richmond facilities where these events occurred? Thanks.
Through the chair, Councilor Wolf, no, there is no identification in those to a specific area or specific homes or commercial buildings or something. This is very unfortunate. Yes, there is a few, but there's no specific trends or anything like that in regards to those. I can't say specifically on all these files if people knew each other. I will have to come back to you and really be in details and read a lot of the files, but in essence, 73% have been where suspects have been identified, and 6 of those were actually through BC ICE.
Great. Yeah, I'm not requesting any further information, so thank you. Thank you, though.
All right, any other questions from committee?
Move receipt.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 10, RCMP Monthly Activity Report, July 2022. Any questions from committee? I don't see any questions. There is a recommendation in the package.
Move receipt.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Item number 11, RCMP OIC Briefing. Anything you want to share with us today?
Madam Chair, no, nothing to add to this report. Thank you.
I just wanted to congratulate you and for the Hate Has No Place call to action. I know I'm the liaison to the Richmond Intercultural Advisory Committee, and the incidence of hate crimes and incidents has come up at many areas at that committee, at this table, and throughout our community. So I really want to congratulate the RCMP working with the city and getting the word out that we will not be tolerating any of these things. So anything you want to add about that, how it's going? Or I know I should have emailed you earlier, but
No, it's going really well. We have a very fantastic partnership with a lot of our faith people, as well as our community engagement and many other partners. And it is well received, and the message is clear, and it's going really well. And I think you can see from the numbers, they've gone drastically lower. So no, very enthused, and we're going to keep doing it and finding new ways to make sure that we educate people and pass the message loud and clear.
That's outstanding. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the work that you do. All right, I don't see any questions for the acting OIC, so we'll move to item 12, Manager's Report. Are there any Manager's Reports today, Ms. Ashley?
Madam Chair, there's nothing to report today.
Nothing to report.
Move
Well
adjournment.
then, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Jack, where are you?
Okay, where is,
Be on this wavelength for the
Oh, is
next
this
one?
the same meeting? Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, we'll convene with Public Works meeting momentarily.
So it's 3:35. I call the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion for the minutes? Move second and call up question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. Next meeting will be on October 19th at 4 o'clock, same place. Any addition to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we go on to the items. Item number 1, Kittiwaki Drive, traffic calming update. So anything to add to the report?
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything to add to the report, and staff are available to answer any questions.
Okay, with some questions, Alexa?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for this, and I know I've spoken to staff quite a bit over this because I live in the neighborhood, and I personally, the way I drive on there, I thought it seemed unreasonable, the numbers that were getting clocked on that short strip of road, but I will, obviously it must be a problem if the neighbors are complaining. I personally haven't seen people go that quickly, or maybe I'm just slowing them down because I'm dawdling along on there. But anyway, I think it makes sense to do something. I did hear from a number of people how they were concerned about the idea of traffic circles and how they didn't think that they would work there, and that they were concerned for their own ability to move their boats and RVs and whatever else. And so I like the concept of the speed cushions. What else could we have there besides those two things? Like, do those things that stick in the ground that just warn people to slow down, do those work? Because I know we have them further along where there's a crosswalk, but like, what are the other options besides the traffic circles and the speed cushions?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes, there's a suite of different traffic calming devices that can be explored for this specific context, given the demonstrated speeding issues on the street based on staff surveys and the feedback from the public. We are proposing the vertical deflection, as it has been proven as a method to reduce operating speeds of vehicles. Although going forward, depending on the feedback and the results of the monitoring period, other options could develop out of that process. So we have the trial to see the effectiveness of the speed cushions in response to the speeding issues. And after that, staff can provide more informed direction to council on options to pursue for the permanent condition.
Okay, so just offhand, what are some of the other options?
Through the chair, staff can look at, Mr. Lee's here.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair to Councillor Liu, there are tons of different options, right? All with varying levels of success in our experience. Some that I think work better than others are making the roadways a little narrower through various means. Like we've done, in some places we've put up delineators that give that perception the road's narrower, and that we believe it does slow people down. And the challenge with making the road narrower is that if you want to do something a little nicer and more permanent than the delineators, well, moving the curbs is just a very expensive option. It's a good option, but it's something that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we don't recommend that at this point in time for this location. You've mentioned the neighbors are, they were nervous about traffic circles. Those are actually proven to be very effective. And it's, you know, in my opinion, unfortunate that the neighborhood's nervous about that, but they've been proven, a lot of studies say, to be about 80% effective at reducing accidents, and another further 80% reduction in accident severity. So they're very, very good for this kind of thing, primarily because they slow traffic down. We could put in-street delineators like you were talking about. We mostly reserve those for school zones and things like that. They're not a cheap maintenance item. You know, people do drive over them and things like that. And of course, there's just regular speed bumps, which you know, are truly proven to reduce traffic speeds. Probably the only true physical thing that will really bring the speed down below, you know, 40 reliably. The challenge is it also reduces the speed of our emergency vehicles and things like that. So quite often, you know, our emergency response folks have to have a look at it and feel at the number of homes or buildings that are being serviced in that catchment and see how much it's going to slow down their response. and give us a recommendation. That's always part of this process. And in this case, they did not recommend that. So, you know, in our search through everything, we found that this idea of having some open channels in it that are the width of a fire truck, hopefully, we think that that's got a chance of working. We're not certain, 100% certain that it's going to slow down the rest of traffic. That's why I think a 6-month trial would be good in this instance. And as we move forward, you know, hopefully it's another tool that we can use, because like I said, the only truly effective thing for reliably reducing traffic speed is speed humps, right? But they're just not desirable in every location.
Okay, thank you. Is there, so I see we've got the temporary speed humps. Is there a temporary traffic circles? Like, could we do a temporary traffic circle in one spot and the speed hump on the other, and then see if there was a preference once? If they were.
Councillor Liu, yeah, absolutely. We can do anything in a temporary fashion, right? The challenge sometimes with traffic circles is they require a lot of space, right? Like you've all seen traffic circles, and sometimes they require modification to the curbs and stuff in the corners. So in those cases, it's hard to do it in a temporary way. Like it'd be sort of temporary permanent. You'd still spend a lot of money in curb realignment and things like that. And, you know, that adds up really fast. You'd certainly be talking like.
So no, it's not the same as this, just drill it in and walk,
you can do
test
it's just
for
a lot more expensive.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just to staff, a few questions about the speed cushions. So there is the picture on our PWT 12 of the fire truck going over. And then in the paragraph beside it, it mentions that cyclists would not be impacted because they could use that the passage to not have to go over the hump. Could you just clarify, would that mean they'd have to go into the roadway where these tires are of the fire truck, or would there be ones on the edge of the road on both sides for the cyclists?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there would be a slot between the edge of the roadway and the traffic cushion to allow for cyclists to passage.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarifying that. My next question related to the same topic. Do we have like a stockpile of these speed cushions? Like, so are more available? And if so, does staff have a list of other areas where we could potentially get them used for a pilot?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, staff have ordered a couple of these devices to look for opportunities to trial around the city. If the trial period demonstrates success in terms of the effectiveness of these devices, definitely we can continue the pilot program and look for other locations in the city that have speeding issues.
Great, terrific. Thank you very much.
Andy?
Oh, sorry, did you call me? Oh, okay, thank you, and through the chair. Well, thank you for the report. It was very interesting, and you know, traffic safety is something that comes up to all of us in all the different communities in Richmond quite frequently, and I know you deal with a lot of different areas and issues. I was a little surprised too by the 85th percentile mark. I would not have guessed it was that high, but it is what it is. I also appreciate the fact there's been different levels of consultation attempted in this area, in this neighborhood. And so that's good because we've all received some feedback from neighbors there. I support the report and I support this trial because it is a trial after all, and it'll be important in both assessing traffic safety and also getting feedback from the neighborhood as to how they like it and that kind of thing. So that's very good. When it comes to the regular speed humps, one observation I've had is just that there seems to be a bit of slight inconsistency in the height and severity of some of them. And I know that we've made adjustments to some things in the past. So, but this isn't permanent. This is just temporary. So they'll come manufactured as they are. The one question I have is on Kittiwake at number 2 Road. The issue of a flashing yellow light has come up with the crosswalk there. And as it so happens, I was just crossing that road and trying to cross it at about 5 p.m. About 2 days ago. And yeah, it was a little tough to get across. I was trying to go from the east to the west, and some traffic stopped in one direction and didn't in the other, and that can happen anywhere, as I'm sure you're aware. But and I know we have to prioritize these installations as well, but is that something that we'd be able to look at in kind of due course, is having some sort of flashing light at that intersection, even if it's, less than a full-fledged installation of a traffic light?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, absolutely. There's a lot of demand for special crosswalks throughout the city. Lots of places where people would like them, and we do have a priority list of how we've used our warrant structure to determine who's first, not who doesn't get one.
Right.
Because as we move forward in time, we have a program that puts in 2 to 4 of these things a year. There are some cheaper alternatives that have become available, smaller solar-powered ones. They're a lot cheaper to put in because we don't actually have to run power to them. That's actually a big cost consideration in all of this. There is potential we could trial those in some places. I guess one of the things I'd be concerned about is some people thinking that they didn't get the full meal deal. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, but I do think that they're worth trying, and this might be a really good location. I don't know if it's our number 1 location based on our warrant studies, but certainly if directed by council, we could trial something here or in another location if council directed us to do so.
Okay. That's a fair comment. There are priorities and there are expenses connected to it. I think as long as you can provide some assurance that it's on the radar as one to be looked at, I think that would probably be sufficient.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, we actually, based on some comments from yourself and others, have done. We're beginning another warrant study there to see if things have changed. Like certainly since the new multi-use path and the new improvements to number 2 road and the growing neighborhood. I think the last one we did was 2019 or 2018. So we're currently reviewing it and seeing if the traffic volumes and pedestrian volumes are different than last time we did it, and it could definitely advance the ranking on this one in our priority order if it gets a higher warrant score.
Okay, so it's on the radar.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good, yeah. I just want to ask a question that, now, since the designs that they're cut out so that the emergency vehicles can pass through, but would it not be the same for the ordinary vehicles, right? They just go through the cutouts and without really slowing down. So is it really working both ways?
Mr. Chair, actually, the design in terms of the layout allows for the wheelbase for a fire truck that's wider to have the gaps to traverse without having to mount the speed cushion, whereas a regular vehicle that has a narrower width would have to go over the cushion.
Okay, so there's no way that the ordinary vehicles can go through these cutouts?
The way it's designed, they would have to straddle at least one part of it.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. There's a staff recommendation for
Move the
option 3.
recommendation.
Move. Second. Call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Item number 2, remove or channelized right turn islands to improve. Anything to report? Anything to add?
Mr. Chair, nothing further to add on this one either. Staff are available to answer any questions.
Any questions? Andy?
Oh, my hand is still up, sorry.
Do you have a question? No?
I do, but Michael might have been first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you through the chair. I just wanted to say I like this report because I think it's something we should look at in the city, and maybe I can do that offline. Because I find there's a couple locations in addition where we have a right turn only lane where perhaps from a safety point of view and even traffic efficiency point of view, it might be appropriate to have both straight through and right turn. But I did like the report, so I'm glad we're looking at that. So no questions to comment. Thank you.
Michael?
Good idea.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, question and then I guess an amendment perhaps. My first question is on attachment 1, which is the map of the channelized right-hand turns on page PWT 21. I can't read the legend, and I've looked online or the paper copy, and I can't figure out what those say in the legend. Are you able to describe which color means what?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, I can do that. We can also forward a copy to council after this meeting that provides clearer image. The blue circle represents a standard intersection. The yellow circle represents a intersection for future study within the city. Green is for a signal where staff have identified that no upgrade is required within city jurisdiction. And the red at the bottom of the list represents an external signal that is within the jurisdiction of either the ministry or the airport.
Wonderful, thank you for that. I'm not requesting an extra copy or anything different. That I wrote it down, so that would work for me. My next question, or I guess I'm not sure what it is, but the next page, the attachment 2, which is where the staff are either telling us it's standard intersection or status quo or future study. I would like to amend that for 2 of the items. So Shell Road and Cambie Road and Shell Road and Westminster Road. I would like both of those to have future study improvement status. I'm not sure if you need that to be an amendment to this motion to have those added. Yeah, so first I'll ask what would be the method there.
Okay, so could staff respond to the suggestion?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, at this point in time, based on staff's review, which is ongoing in terms of monitoring the situation, we've determined that status quo is the condition to maintain based on our analysis that included the presence of pedestrians that were low at these locations, the collision data that was also low in terms of the number of crashes experienced at these intersections for those right turn movements, and just the fact that these locations are outside of our urban center, so the conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists remains minor as a consideration, yet there is a high amount of other traffic that is making the right turn. So for now, staff were recommending that the existing conditions stay. Further, there's geometrics at this intersections that allow for vehicles to slow down on the approach because there's a very short merge section. So even though there is a channelized right turn with a concrete island, traffic on the approaches is required to decelerate as they approach these intersections. So that was the criteria that staff looked at as part of our review, but definitely given direction by committee, staff can undertake further study.
Okay, so
Okay.
Councillor Wolf, are you okay with that answer?
Yeah, yes, I am. But if I could just provide some comments then, and then I would actually, well, let me provide comments first, and then I'll think about if I want to make ask for staff direction from committee. But the Shell Road and Westminster Highway, first of all, it's a highway. Vehicles are moving faster than the roads, and yes, I know it's a short window to get into that channel. But I often see, because of the train tracks being there, cars will go to the right because it's wide enough where the cycling lane is, and they'll use that to whip around. 20 years ago, my sister was hit while she was riding her bike in this exact location due to a fast-moving vehicle in that channel lane. And then secondly, the Shell Road and Cambie Road. My whole life, I've gone along Cambie Road. At that intersection, I've seen a number of pedestrians hit, and I know it's a short little window, but people are whipping around to get on the highway on ramp, or they're testing out their cars from the BMW dealership. And yes, it's not in the city center, but there is a lot more pedestrian traffic and cycling traffic. People trying to connect to the Shell Road Trail for cycling or walking. And so I would deem these two as needing future study. Perhaps not as if staff have determined already that the other 3 at the bottom of this chart require future study. I'm happy if the other 2 are lower priority, but I do think they are warranting future study. So I would like to ask for committees to ask for staff direction to add those 2 to future study.
Staff.
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Wolf, what I would say is like this is staff's recommendation. At the end of the day, if council would like us to do something else, certainly we're not opposed to either studying this some more. I don't know that based on the current numbers that our opinion would change at this point in time, maybe in the future when if the volumes or the accident statistics change. But we're also not opposed if council directs us to actually change the intersection to a standard right turn instead of a channelized right turn. But this is staff's recommendation.
Now, maybe I would like to seek a clarification here now. On the same page, right? As mentioned, the last 3 items on the chart was classified as future study. So what do you mean? So, I mean, how soon will the future study be conducted? Are you talking about a year, 2 years, 3 years? What's the time frame for this kind of a future study?
Mr. Chair, I was thinking more on the time frame of 1 or 2 years, not immediately, but they're in that place where we think that we should keep an eye on it and potentially bring forward another recommendation sometime in the next year or 2 or 3.
Okay, good. So in that case, probably, because as you mentioned, right, you know, if you're going to do the another study at the Shell Road location, more or less it will be the same result. So, but if we put it in under the same category, like future study, you know, that we do it on a later day, but keeping it on the list so that we keep an eye on it, I think that can be done, right?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. At the committee or council's direction, we can certainly do that.
Okay, good. So in that case, I would suggest that we have a recommendation from staff, you know, which is writing letters or making requests to the other authorities. So let's deal with that motion first, and after that, you know, perhaps Michael, you can initiate a motion that asking these two locations be included in the future study status. Okay. Okay, if there's no objection, I would deal with the motion on.
Move the recommendation.
Move.
Second.
Second. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. And then, now, Michael, come back to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we add the Shell Road and Cambie Road intersection and the Shell Road Westminster Highway intersection to have a future study to remove the channelized right turn island into a standard intersection.
Okay, good. Is it being
I'll
seconded?
second that.
Second, thank you. Yeah, so it's moved and seconded.
And I'll speak to it if you like.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I support looking at this. I realize that having the channels in those spaces have the opportunity to actually be a protective spot to sort of cross that channelized spot and not. But I also know that we're improving the multi-use path along Alder Bridge, so we are actually trying to get more bike and foot traffic there and support that. So I think Councillor Wolf has a good point here, and I'm sorry that his sister got hit there. I think that's unfortunate. But we should look at that if we are trying to increase the traffic, the bike and foot traffic there, because we are increasing the bike paths, then having a second look at those channelized intersections makes sense.
Okay, good, very good. Any further discussion? So I'll call the question. Those in favor of the referrals?
It's good.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Moving forward to item 3, award of contract 8058P. Suzanne, any further comments, new information?
No, Mr. Chairman, we have nothing to add.
Okay.
Move recommendation?
Move. Second. Michael?
Thank you. Through the chair, just a short question to staff. I had given an email advanced warning on this question. Do we know if the SuperSafe group of companies is a livable wage employer?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, SuperSafe did voluntarily tell us that they are a living wage employer, and the individuals working on the Richmond contract will be paid actually above living wage.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing
Move
none?
the recommendation.
Call a question. It's a remove.
sorry.
So call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving forward, item 4, Fraser River Freshnet and Flood Protection Update 2022. Any new information?
Nothing further to add to the report, Mr. Chair. I can answer any questions.
Okay, any questions?
Move recommendation?
Move second. Michael?
Thank you. Very fascinating report, especially attending the UBCM this past week, and many of the sessions I went to were directly related to the impacts of atmospheric river. So I have a few questions on a few different pages here. So first up on page 31, it talks about, a little ways down there, it talks about a temporary pump station will be installed in 2022 prior to the rain season. This is in the Horseshoe Slough catchment area where there's been kind of a concern because of the low-lying properties height. So I'd like to know where exactly is that being located? That's my first question.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, staff anticipate that the pump station will be installed at Stevenson Highway and Shell Road, and that will be a temporary pump station. We're continuing to assess the need for the station. We'll see how it performs through the winter rainfall season. And if we feel that it's warranted for a capital submission, we will bring that forward to council for consideration.
Okay, thanks. Then just to follow up on that through the chair, again, UBCM grant applications might be warranted to help fund that if it is becomes a permanent project or even a temporary project that might be a good fit. The next bullet point on that page 31, it mentions inland drainage pump stations are complete at 2 different locations. Could you just provide, of our 39 drainage pump stations, how many of them now are inland?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, those 2 stations have been completed. I believe we have less than a handful of internal lift stations that help us improve our flow characteristics throughout the island. But to build on the assessment that we are completing at Stevenson and Shell, we may feel that in the future there's additional demand for those stations. So we'll continue to assess the need for them and come back to council for endorsement if we assess that the need is required.
Terrific, thank you. My next question, if I may, through the chair, on the next page 32, at the near the top, it mentions portable fuel supplies for backup generators and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. My question there is, if we're in the state of a flood, are we able to still fill these or draw from them? So like, can you reach them? Like, do you need a boat, and can the boat get there and they're on a long stalk or hose so they can still be reached?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the majority of our drainage pump stations are already equipped with backup generators that are pre-fueled to take care of events where there could be an outage. So the intent of the fuel supply would be to build in an additional redundancy should the fuel tanks be empty or we need to get there in an emergency. So we'd have to assess on a case-by-case basis where the issues occurred. But the thought is that we could strategically deploy this fuel supply where needed to help combat outages around the city.
Great, thank you. And just a follow-up on that, one of the great visuals I saw at the UBCM presentation I went to was talking about North America, and since the last glacier period, it's rebounding in the center and it's dipping down on the both coasts. And we learned a lot about what they're doing in Prince Edward Island in preparation for not just sea level rise, but that land subsistence, which thankfully was highlighted on the bottom of page 32 and is factored into our work. So that's good to see. My next question, I guess last question areas, goes to page 33 in the Dyke rehabilitation section. It mentions there three properties that, near 3 properties where there's been some additional riprap added. So it's the middle point on the Dyke rehabilitation section. So my comment there first is that the middle property one, so the one that's near 21,920 River Road, to me, when I saw that happen, because I commute along River Road daily, to me it didn't look like it was just needing to be added on. It actually looked like the dike was dropping into the river. This was around that King Tide event. And so my question, I guess, is are we needing to do more of that on a spot, like temporary, or not spot temporary, but like just wait till it happens and then deal with it, and that's an acceptable amount of work, or is it once we build the whole dike infrastructure, that type of riprap dropping the land into the river, that won't happen? Is it just basically the existing style of dike and the slopes that are allowing that kind of erosion of infrastructure?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, staff are proactively inspecting and maintaining dikes throughout the city as part of our dike maintenance program. So anytime we're alerted to an issue, we assess it to determine whether we can add additional riprap or if we do need to undertake a full rebuild of the dike. So once those issues are brought to attention, we look to rectify them as soon as possible.
Okay, great, thanks. Then my final question in this report is the bullet point below there that talks about ponding issues near the dike at 15911 River Road, which is basically the parking lot for the 7 Road Pier, which I've seen and received lots of complaints on people that can't access it because it's a big pool, a pothole full of water. So it's great to see that was addressed as a drainage, I guess, issue. So is that solved now? Or because I've been talking with road crew that they were going to put in fresh gravel and stuff. So is that whole parking lot and entranceway, that issue's been solved? Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, so to address that issue, city operations crews did go out there and clear a couple of plug drains and have reinstated some of the dike armoring. So to our knowledge, it's currently in a good working condition. If there are any issues that do arise in the future, we'll revisit to see if there's further action that needs to be undertaken.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Okay, Alexa?
Thank you, through the chair. Question to staff, thank you for the work on this, and following up a little bit more on the piece on the Horseshoe Slough Canal and drainage pipes, and then the need for a new drainage pump station there. This came up at the Chamber of Commerce, actually, that there was a significant business and Richmond employer that was in that area, that their insurance rates had gone up significantly because of the risk of flooding in that area and whatnot. So I'm just wondering if staff has been in contact with any of the businesses in that area to talk about those upgrades.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, I'm not aware of any direct communication that we've had with certain businesses. As part of our upcoming efforts and learnings from the atmospheric river, we're working on a communication strategy globally throughout the city to help better inform private property owners about what they can do if there is a significant rainfall event in terms of clearing their on-site drainage systems, and perhaps some things that the city could do to assist them in terms of sandbag staging areas and strategically deploying sandbags where possible to help mitigate some of the concerns.
Okay. Now, when staff's looking at assessing the need for a new drainage pump at that specific location, and if the local business adjacent to it has a vested interest in that, and possibly even an interest in somehow maybe even doing a cost share to move it along and to speed the process up if they are involved in it, is there a process for that, for them to be able to be involved in that?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, I'm not aware of any current process, but before we got to that stage, we'd have to assess the need for it. Theoretically, drainage pump stations work great, but there's a fine balance between having too many pump stations and then building our infrastructure to also detain and store stormwater.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, I'm here. Maybe I'll just add to that a bit too. Yeah, we do. Certainly it would be unusual for an individual resident or commercial interest to come forward and volunteer to pay for some of this infrastructure. We do have drainage and diking utilities fund this. But certainly there's mechanisms where individual properties or a collection of properties can use our local area service plan process, where we make an assessment on their properties and they provide funding for new infrastructure that's not in place. And of course, wherever we have development, we would look at elements like these pump stations to be completed and servicing agreements to have developers pay. But so we do have some existing processes there, but we'd be quite happy if there's any commercial interests that want to make grants or donations to support this effort. That typically doesn't happen, but anybody that's asking those questions, we can certainly have some of our existing processes identified to them.
Thank you.
Harold?
Yeah, excellent report. First, I just want to make one comment on page 32. It mentions seasonal high tides and king tides were not significant this winter. That's incorrect. The storm surge we had when it took out the Stanley Park seawall, in my opinion, was the worst storm surge we've had on the West Dyke in 50 years. What is significant about it, our dikes have been rebuilt over that time, and it didn't bother them in the least. But it was a significant storm surge. There is a natural sea berm that's over a meter high, a kilometer out from the West Dyke. And for the first time since about 1965, huge logs breached that seawall and came into the dike. And it took out 800 feet of our fence that's been up there since about 1955 or 6. So it was significant. The waves were high, the white caps, I've never seen anything like that before. But our dikes, it was about a foot and a few inches from the top of our dike, even for the highest waves, and it didn't fizz on them in the least. The dikes were perfect. Anyway, that's my only comment. This is an excellent report, and as I'm on the committee for Metro Vancouver on flood control, I would ask that maybe the committee would amend this report to have it sent for information to Metro Vancouver for the flood control committee.
Very good. Okay, any further questions?
No.
So it's been moved and seconded, and I would deal with Harold's suggestion after we vote on this main motion. Those in favor? Oppose? Motion carry. And Harold suggests that we also send a copy of this report to the Metro Vancouver. So
I'll move that.
Move second, call the question. Those in favor? Oppose? Motion carry. Thank you very much. Item number 5, manager's report.
I have 2 items of update from transportation through the committee. The first one is in regard to a traffic signal upgrade at number 1 Road and Francis Road.
Sorry, we can't hear.
Oh, sorry.
The first item from transportation is in regards to an upgrade at the intersection of number 1 Road and Francis Road. A new eastbound left turn arrow was added to the intersection to improve traffic safety at this location.
Good.
The second update is regarding the Capstan Station integration strategy. As Council approved this weekend on September 25th as part of the research and data gathering phase of the project, the consultant will be facilitating a pop-up engagement in City Center, basically to understand how people travel, what their patterns are with respect to getting to and from the SkyTrain stations, and how also they interact with public spaces. The pop-up boards will be used to gather ideas and suggestions from the public that will further inform the consultant's design, development work, and activation strategy for this project. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any questions? Okay, Michael?
Thanks. It's not specifically related to those 2 transportation, but they're just very brief questions about transportation. One, is there any manager's update for the Cambie overpass intel? Like, do we have any estimate on how long that 1 lane on the north side westbound is going to be closed for?
Can staff answer that?
Through the chair, we'll ask the folks on the call if there's an update, or Mr. B has an update on that.
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware, I don't have an answer for that right now, but we can certainly look into it and get back to you as quickly as we can, unless there's someone else on the call that actually has an answer to that.
Okay, thank you. My second one is related to street lighting. I note that staff have been installing LED lighting, and I've noted where long stretches like of 6 Road, they put them in right where Blundell T intersections with 6 Road. But then the other day I noticed Grey Bar Road out in Hamilton area, it's like neon blue. I'm not seeing anywhere else in the city. Can staff comment what's going on with the lights on Grey Bar Road?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Wolf, yes, but on the odd occasion, we do have these lights fail. The LED lights, the way they actually work, to get the full spectrum light, they actually suppress the other colors. You could make them any color you want. So typically when sometimes the unit fails, it will move to a purple or blue hue. So we addressed that. We've had a few of those issues occur in the past, and we've addressed them with the manufacturer. They've usually fully covered those costs.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you.
So any further managers report? Seeing none, moving to the last item. Michael?
Thank you. Through you to committee. And I know there are, I think, 2 or 3 people on the call who would like to speak to this item. So it was, and we also have received a variety of letters. Some came in our email today, and some came over the last few weeks. And they advocate for making changes. And it all stemmed to a tragic death as a result of Augustin Beltran being hit on July 29th. And we've seen action, Vancouver has taken action to make some changes. So what I would like committee to consider is the following recommendation under the heading of safety measures for heavy trucks. And this was written by me. It's not a carbon copy of what Vancouver's done. But anyhow, here's the recommendation: that the City of Richmond owned and our contracted heavy trucks are mandated to have side guards. 2, that we encourage the installation of additional blind spot side mirrors and encourage the use of backup cameras. That goes for Richmond owned and contracted heavy truck. Number 3, that we review bike lanes in terms of turning conflicts, kind of like we did during this meeting with the channelized right turn and more, and mitigate to reduce risks to vulnerable road users. 4, that we advocate with regional, provincial, and federal authorities to create consistent framework for truck operators, which I know we do, but perhaps under a different advocacy or education. And then finally, number 5, that we advocate to ICBC and truck driving associations to deliver increased driver education to better inform of the responsibilities regarding vulnerable road users.
Okay, very good.
I'll second it.
Second. Alexa?
Thank you. A couple things and questions to staff. I know as soon as this accident had happened, I was talking to staff and trying to find out more information about what's possible to do with our own trucks and our fleet. And I don't know if that information's with anybody here at the meeting now. So I had been in touch with our own staff about putting side guards on the trucks immediately after this had happened. I know, just anecdotally, I was driving down Cooney and Cook the other day, and luckily the pedestrians stepped back onto the curb, but they were about to cross with the light, and a truck turned right in front of them and just about took her out, but she stepped back, otherwise she would have been under those wheels. And I don't know that a truck guard would have made any difference. Luckily, she moved and didn't get under the wheels, but it was certainly scary, and we don't want this happening to anybody, pedestrians, cyclists, anything, and I support this, but I do know that some of this information was put to staff immediately after that accident.
Good. Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a question through you to staff on item 1 of the recommendation. So, I don't know how many trucks that the city owns or how many that we contract out. And, just wondering, what is the feasibility of that? I'm wondering if it's better to say, investigate and report back, because there's going to be a cost to that and there may be budget implications. So I don't know if we can mandate it without understanding what the cost will be. I'm in favor of the motion. I just don't know if this gets us to where we need to be.
Okay.
Can staff answer that?
Through the chair to Councillors McPhail and Liu, staff are aware of the issue. It was brought to our attention and we have been looking into it. There would definitely be cost impacts for us as well as potential operational impacts. There are issues relating to the truck and adding to it afterwards from an engineering design perspective that would have to be looked into, as well as we'd have to evaluate how that might impact the truck's ability to properly push snow during the snow event response. So there would definitely be cost impacts that would have to be considered, as well as engineering impacts, and we would have to consider how that might impact our contractors that we do hire, because we do hire many of them to work for us on a daily basis throughout the city as well. So that would have to be looked at in greater detail to determine those ongoing, initial and ongoing cost impacts.
Thank you. So I'd like to make an amendment that number 1 be investigate and report back before we mandate it, because I think we need to know, like I said, I'm in favor of the recommendation, but we're not going to, I don't know if it's cost effective that we can say our whole fleet do it right away. So I think, so if there's a seconder, that'd be good.
Is there a seconder? Okay,
Second.
seconded. Now, I want to ask staff, if we ask for further investigation on, matters already being raised, how soon do you think we can get a report and the information?
Mr. Chair, we have had some difficulty actually looking into this initially with the vendors because it's uncommon and they're not used to it. And given the season we're in, I would say a first quarter of next year, if that would be acceptable to committee.
John?
Mr. Chair, yeah, just to add to that, yes, Ms. Bycraft is absolutely correct on that. But certainly, in the general area of fleet and vehicle safety, we're constantly reviewing things like this, and anywhere where we see we can make an improvement on an immediate basis, we'll act. So some of this might actually take quite a bit to analyze, and we're certainly not alone in that. As Ms. Bycraft has identified, there might be some issues with these actually being broadly available, or the installation on certain vehicles may actually create other safety issues with the operation of the vehicle. So it is quite complicated, and a lot of it is out of our jurisdiction. But certainly, so some of it might take some time to analyze and get back to you. But if we see any immediate quick wins that we think are a good idea, we can certainly bring those back in short order.
Okay, very good. Andy?
Thanks, and through you. Well, I agree with the recommendation. I also agree with the amendment for the reasons stated. I've been to quite a few collisions of this nature, both fatal and serious injury. And I think Mr. Irving just touched on a key part of it, and that is that it involves other levels of government. And it might also be prudent for us to ask the RCMP to take this to the BC Traffic Safety Committee at the Chiefs of Police, because they'd be a good group to have advocating for this if they're not already. So, yeah, I will be supporting the recommendation, but I think there's a couple other allies that we could have in this. And I'll be supporting the amendment too, if that's on the floor, because I think that many of the vehicles in our city are not subject to contract or city fleet policies. So it would be good to have the changes made at both the federal and provincial level where they're necessary. Thank you.
Linda, I see your hand up again.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, okay.
But I think you have to call the,
Yes, I know. I'm just thinking that maybe before we vote on the amendment, I know that we have 3 speakers who want to address the issue. Can we call them in? Yes. Okay, before we vote on the amendment motion. The first one, I think, is Anna.
Who?
Anna, are you there?
Hello, yes.
So you have 5 minutes to address committee?
May I pass it to one of our committee members? Jesse, would you be able to speak on this matter?
Yes, I don't know if that's
Thank you.
all right within the requirements of the committee or the meeting format.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you to the chair, and also thanks to Councillor Michael Wolf for putting forth this motion. So my name is Jesse. I work in Richmond near Fraserwood Place and Westminster Highway. Every day I ride my bike to and from work across Richmond, and I'm always concerned for my safety whenever crossing one of the many intersections or riding on the roads which are heavily frequented by trucks. So I was very glad to hear back in July that the City of Vancouver had passed a similar motion which required that side guards be installed on all of the trucks that Vancouver operates in contracts. And this is also why I had contacted the City of Richmond about the same issue shortly afterwards. I did want to point out that, Vancouver is a next door neighbor essentially, and they are willing to take the steps. So there was a comment earlier about concerns that there wouldn't be suppliers available or vendors available for these trucks. But given that Vancouver is able to take the step, it certainly seems feasible or reasonable that there are vendors available. Now, side guards on trucks, of course, do not prevent collisions, but I know that they can significantly reduce the severity of collisions. I believe in the UK, fatalities from cyclist truck side impacts dropped by about 60% after introduction of mandatory side guards. And so passing this motion or an amended one where there's a request to investigate the feasibility of this would, I think, be an easy way to improve safety for cyclists in Richmond. As mentioned, Metro Vancouver has already recently suffered this tragedy when Augustine was killed in that collision, and his life could have been saved had side guards been installed on that truck. And while we can't change the past, we can affect our future and make sure this doesn't happen again. Again, passing this motion would make Richmond safer for me, as well as my friends and coworkers, several of whom also live, work, and shop in Richmond and get around by bike. And as a whole, Richmond should be taking every action it can to encourage cycling and make cycling safer for the myriad associated public health, environmental, and economic benefits of cycling. Thank you for your time.
Very good, thank you. Donna? Is Donna here?
Hello?
Donna Kwan? Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Donna, go ahead, please.
Go ahead. Well, I think Jesse is an amazing speaker. Thank you, Jesse, for speaking on behalf of HUB. I sent a link to a study by the City of Toronto that was taken in 2019, and there are facts that I can give to you guys from a Canadian city. 2 out of 4 fatalities and 14 of the serious injuries for cyclists could have been avoided or reduced with installation of side guards. 8.80 pedestrian fatalities could have been reduced with the installation of side guards. The report concludes that based on the research conducted, there is evidence that suggests installing well-designed side guards to all trucks would result in fewer fatalities and serious injuries among pedestrians and cyclists in certain types of collision. So this is science-based, and I really wish that this item would go forward as quickly as possible because we all want to go home to our families.
Very good, thank you. Now, after hearing the debate and also the presentations by delegations, I have one suggestion. I think in general, we support the motion itself. However, there's a consideration of the cost and other complication matters that may involve. And hearings from staff saying that some matters might require more time to investigate, but some actions can be taken, as quick wins sooner than later. So may I suggest that, for this amendment, yes, we investigate those matters, but at the same time, we recommend to staff, or we request staff to have a report or memo or some information coming back faster and earlier on matters that we can deal with immediately. What I'm trying to say is that I don't want to wait for a full report until next year when we have something that we can do ASAP. But yes, some matters need further investigation. So can we have that understanding while we are talking about having investigation further? We are also at the same time asking staff to come back with some information that we can do it faster than waiting for the full report. Andy?
Well, thank you, and through the chair. I mean, what you said does make sense. I mean, even with the motion as it's written, if we pass it, it's got a lot of good information in it, including number one. I mean, on the understanding that staff may come back with information that's relevant to it, and we can consider that at the time. So I don't have a particular issue with doing that now.
Okay, so if that is acceptable understanding, I don't think we need to amend the amendment. But with that kind of understanding, staff, you know what we want, and so we can just vote on the amendment itself. But we also expect information to come back earlier on things that we can do immediately. Can we do that, John?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. As I mentioned, yes, we look at the stuff on an ongoing basis. And yes, sometimes we can find things that we can just implement immediately. Yes. Other times, things take some considerable time. Certainly when we buy new vehicles, trucks in this category, the lead time for the purchasing process can be in excess of a year. And certainly don't want to say that would take that long if we see that side guards are a good solution and affordable. But I know, certainly if others like Vancouver are proceeding that way, I would encourage those watching that space to look at the details, because even with the motion as it's written without further investigation, I can assure you it would take some time to procure and install these side guards and other measures over our entire fleet and our contractors' fleet. That would take months and months on its own, even with quick availability of materials, which we're challenged with across the board right now. So certainly don't want to appear negative on any of this. I think it's all very positive discussion, and we'll certainly bring back anything we can possible.
Okay, good. Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted clerks to have what my amendment was. I don't think I said it, but.
Okay, sure.
So that staff investigate and report back the implications of the City of Richmond owned and contracted heavy trucks to be mandated to have side guards. That's what I wanted the wording to say. And I do have a question of the mover of the motion. Number 2, that's to be that we encourage the installation of additional blind spot side mirrors. That's for City of Richmond owned and contracted trucks as well?
Yes, correct.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you to the chair. So that's, as we understand the motion with items 1 through 5. And will there be some sort of addition to that now with the chair's recent comments, or would that be second?
Okay, in that case, what mess are we at 6? Which is, report back on any immediate action that can be taken to improve the safety of the cyclists in relation to, heavy trucks. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'll call the question.
I think you have to call the amendment.
Call a question on an amendment. Yeah. So those in favor? Oppose? Motion carry. Very good. Any further questions, comments? If not, motion to adjourn?
No, you have to call the question on the amendment.
On the main motion.
Call the motion.
Oh,
We
okay.
amended it.
No, call a motion. Those in favor? Oppose? Motion carry. Motion to adjourn?